Hello, everyone, and welcome to Beginnings, the show that asks, where do creative people come from? My name is Andy. I'm the host of the show and a writer and performer based in Los Angeles, California. How is everyone doing? Difficult question. How are you doing? Struggling? Everyone struggling in the face of such monumental evil in the world? Hey, here's your antidote, at least for an hour. Great talk today with Mark Robinson. If you don't know who Mark is, I'm going to read you his bio right now. Originally from New Jersey, musician and the founder of Teen Beat Records, Mark Robinson moved to Washington, D.C. as a child, and in high school formed the indie rock group Unrest. From 1985 to about 1994, the band released 7 albums, many on Robinson's own Teen Beat Records, as well as Caroline and 4AD. Since then, Mark has played in a number of groups, including Air Miami, Flin Flon, Grenadine, Cotton Candy, and many others. As previously mentioned, Mark is also the founder of the very influential indie rock label Teen Beat, which has released albums from bands like Bratmobile vs. Barbara Manning, The Rondells, Velocity Girl, True Love Always, Gaster Del Sol, and so many other incredible musicians. Both Unrest and Teen Beat loomed large when I first discovered them in college. I remember first hearing Imperial FFRR at the radio station, and so much of Teen Beat Records, so many of the musicians have influenced me in some way. So this was a real treat to get to talk to Mark, get into everything, religion, moving to DC, divorce, lots of stuff. Hope you enjoy listening to our chat. And if you do, listeners, what I like to do here in the beginning of every episode is a little recommended if you like. I've been doing this show now over 14 years. And so that's hundreds of talks with writers and musicians and actors and comedians and so on and so forth. It's a lot to go through. So how about, based on today's guest, I suggest some guests that you might like. Mark Robinson, Teen Beat Records. Why don't we just start with a couple other Teen Beat Records folks that have been on the show. Trevor Campman, a.k.a. Holland, who Mark makes music with. That was a cool talk. David Grubbs from Gaster Del Sol, the aforementioned Gaster Del Sol. What about just DC musicians that I've had on the show? Ian MacKaye, Mary Timony, A.V. Tare from Animal Collective. So check out those episodes. If you like what you hear, subscribe to the show, leave a review. Why not? I'm on social media at Andy Beckerman, and I've been writing at a Substack called The Slow Dystopia. It's free, and basically I write an essay every couple months kind of about what the fuck is going on in the world, why does it feel so insane, what's happening. And I think I'm kind of giving some shape to that, so if you want to read that, and also I try to write some jokes in there so it's not dry, because that's what I hated so much about the philosophy I read in grad school. That's at theslowdystopia.substack.com. And again, it's free. Coming up on the show, this was great. Dan Abnett, wonderful comics writer, revolutionized the Guardians of the Galaxy. His comics that he writes, his creator-owned comics, are brilliant. And we had such a good talk, so look forward to that. But for now, let's talk to Mark. Sleepy morning. Our cat woke us up, was very lonely, woke us up at like 5 or 6 in the morning. And then when I went out to sleep on the couch with him, and he wouldn't leave me alone until I gave him new. He was not happy with his food, so he just wanted new, fresh food.
I would too.
So I'm just like double checking everything. I'm just like, all right, yes, this is moving. This is good. I see a little recording thing up in the corner here. Great.
Cool.
Great. What are you? How are you? Sleepless too? Did you get a full night's rest?
I think I'm all right, yeah.
Is insomnia a problem for you ever?
I guess sometimes, but not usually.
Okay. So you are somebody who is well rested, who falls asleep easy.
I think
Why are you rubbing
generally.
that in my face? Our house is built on sleeplessness. and
Wow.
we function somehow. Anyway,
Just because of the cat?
just because of the world, anxiety, neuroses, your whole panoply of mental. I don't want to say illnesses, but let's just say plagues.
Okay.
I think that is a good way of putting it. You seem very balanced, though. Just talking to you just for a little bit.
Good.
You seem. What's the word I'm looking for? Placid, perhaps, even keeled.
Oh. Yeah, I think I sound like that. People tell me I sound very chill.
Now, is that? We can get it right into it if you want, but is that a mask? Are you chill inside? Are you putting? Is it roiling beneath the surface, and you're just like, I have to project calmness?
There's no intentional anything going on, but I seemingly present myself as very relaxed, but I'm definitely very anxious on the inside. But I'm not trying to put up some sort of mask or wall trying to, I can't think of the word. But anyway, you understood what I was saying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's okay. Well, here's the another then question off of that. Is it an attempt to, if I have a calm surface, maybe I can calm the inner anxiety?
No, it's just my natural way of talking.
Interesting. No, I get it. I get it that the kind of naturally falling into a certain cadence, and I'm curious where that comes from for you, though.
I don't know, genetics.
That's the thing, because for me, I think when I am in that kind of mode of being, it's definitely comes for me from I don't want to expend energy. And so I naturally kind of like have this kind of calm outside because I'm either too tired or exhausted from anxiety or something like that. So it comes out as kind of like a quieter affect. So I get that. Like, there's no it's not a complicated answer. Do you know what I mean? Right? It's not like it's not like, well, when I was a child, my parents yelled at me if I talked above 2 decibels. So is that even, I don't know what a decibels, I don't know if 2 is loud or soft. I think it's soft, right?
I think that's soft. I don't really know.
I was trying to find out information about you, and I found mostly just Washington, D.C., the seat of demonic energy in the United States, and that's I'm putting that on D.C.
Sure. Right. Yeah. No, I was like, why is it demonic? And then I was like, oh, right, the government's there. Okay, so go ahead.
Did you? Well, I'll ask this. That I'm saying that I'm putting that on DC, even though I've been to DC before and I haven't felt that energy. I just said it kind of as a joke. But did you feel any of that growing up there? And what part of the city did you grow up in?
I grew up at age 8, I moved to DC from New Jersey, like New York, New Jersey area. Did I feel any demonic energy or just like government energy?
I mean, I'm not separating the two, but sure, governmental energy. Let's go with.
Not really. It just seemed like a normal kind of place. It was just, it was all I knew really, but just seemed like a normal kind of regular place. You didn't even really think about the government, to be honest. Because it's not like I think a lot of kids, their parents worked in the government, and then I guess occasionally there was like some kids in school whose like dad was like a senator or something like that. But other than that, and maybe other than like seeing the Pentagon, the Washington Monument, every day, I didn't really think about it too much.
Where in Jersey? If you say in New York, I'm assuming it's North Jersey.
Yeah.
What are we saying? Teaneck?
Teaneck. I had a camp counselor who was from Teaneck. My parents met at Chatham High School in Chatham, New Jersey.
Okay. What is that? Is that a small town? I really don't know much about Chatham.
It's like my dad now lives in Maplewood, which is like right next to Newark. And then if you go like another town over, it's like Short Hills, and then the next town over is Chatham. And then it's next to Madison, Morristown, blah, blah, blah.
Okay. So right outside of New York, you can jump on the New Jersey Transit and get right there.
Sure.
Okay.
definitely.
But you were only there till you were 8.
Yeah, but I was back there like every summer because my dad still lived there and my grandparents still lived there. Both sets of grandparents.
Okay.
So I was there like, at least once a year until I was probably like 25 or something like that.
So up to the age of 8, what was your life like? Just kind of typical doing child stuff?
Watching TV, going to school.
Was it the 1970s?
Hide and seek. When I was age 8, it was the 1970s. Yeah.
So
Golden age.
it's interesting. I think that's like the sweet spot decade because you will probably you got to have you don't have the boomers kind of narcissism. You didn't grow up with that. And yet you get to live kind of in a decent United States for most of your life, probably. Like, it probably won't break down for another couple decades, for real. I mean, fingers crossed. So childhood in the 70s is the sweet spot. I'm the one who, like, in the 80s, where I'm just like, now I'm like, uh-oh. In my lifetime, I think things are going to get a little rocky.
Huh. Okay. Like you could tell that in the 80s, or you mean you were born in the 80s?
No. I'm just saying that looking back,
Okay.
I'm like, outside of like, I guess I got to have Transformers the movie, but
Okay.
but what are you watching? Like, what culture are you consuming in Jersey? And then we can talk about the shift to DC then.
Sure. I mean, New Jersey, I remember Sesame Street, the Electric Company.
Mm-hmm.
Probably based on the age I was when I was there. Gosh. I do remember seeing that show. Well, I don't remember. I mean, I was so young. I'm not really sure. Like, I feel like most of my TV memories are kind of more like Happy Days, which is more like
Right.
when I got to DC.
Right.
But yeah, like loved like the PBS kids shows and New Zoo Review. What else? Hodgepodge Lodge.
What's that?
These are like PBS children's shows. Hodgepodge Lodge is pretty great. I don't know if you've seen. I can't remember the name of the Amy Sedaris show. Maybe it's called the Amy Sedaris show. That's on now, and there's like a whole spoof on Hodgepodge Lodge, which I would ask people because I haven't heard of Hodgepodge Lodge in a long time, and I was like, "Do you remember this show?" And nobody would remember it. And now it's being spoofed, so I'm like, "Okay, it was like a real thing."
Do you mean the show where she is a homemaker, basically, and she's teaching everyone how to cook, and then like John Early or Cola Scola will come over and do something insane?
That is the show.
At Home with Amy Sedaris.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
But anyway, Hodgepodge Lodge does exist, and now there's Wikipedia and things, so I can verify that yes, it does. It was a thing.
So do you think you form mostly as a person then once you move to DC? Because it seems like the things you're saying are basically like very like, typical child stuff for everyone.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think when you form yourself as a person, it's probably you're taking everything that, that you've experienced, and that kind of adds up. But in terms of like, music and things, I don't know. I think it's everything. It's a combination of New Jersey and DC, I guess.
I think it can add up. I think there are certain things I can pick out in retrospect from my childhood. Look, I was thinking about You Can't Do This on Television. Do you remember that? It was like a Canadian sketch show in the late 70s, early 80s that was then on Nickelodeon when I was a kid.
Wow.
And in retrospect,
vaguely familiar.
Yeah, it was formative for me. But at the time, it was just one of like 1,000 things I was consuming, if that makes sense.
Is it super weird, this You Can't Do This on TV?
No, it's very conventional.
Okay.
It's like a sketch show. Basically, there is a television studio, and the actor, like the show takes place in the studio that the sketches are. How do I say this again? Basically, the show is the actors in the sketches are also then in sketches as themselves in the show.
Okay. Wow.
And so like there are sketches, it's almost meta in that sense. So there are sketches that they are in, and then there are sketches that take place in the television studio where you can't do that on television is filmed. And
wow, I like it.
it's just kind of like if you did, I was about to say Monty Python for kids, but it's not even that. If you did SNL for kids is probably closer to.
Okay.
I don't know. It has a little bit of a British sensibility. If you said, I don't know, that the whole green slime thing for Nickelodeon comes from, if they said, I don't know on the show, then a bucket of green slime was dumped on them from the rafters.
So that show kind of made the Nickelodeon logo, I guess.
Yes, I think so.
Wow. Yeah, interesting.
So that's formative.
That was like
me.
the early days of Nickelodeon.
Yeah. Yeah. It was just an organic kind of branding. I hate using that word, but it was an organic kind of branding. I think that happened to them. But only now as a comedy writer, I'm like, oh yeah, okay. So I guess that did have an effect on me. Whereas at the time, it was just like, well, I watched this, I watched G.I. Joe, and I watched, like, I guess if I had gone into the military, maybe I would have been like, oh yeah, G.I. Joe, I really wanted to fight Cobra.
Yeah, I mean, I think as far as like music goes and TV and culture and things like that, like I do have memories of like pop music in New Jersey and then continuing that in DC too, like top 40 music.
Is there anything particular that stands out to you where you're like, this piqued my interest?
I mean, I remember like in New Jersey, Madison, New Jersey, and we had a babysitter because we lived across the street from Drew University, and I think all our babysitters were students there. And the song Philadelphia Freedom had come out, and our babysitter would like, it came in on the radio, and our babysitter would like crank up the radio and be like dancing around to it. And so that was like, I was like, wow, this is really cool. This thing called music and songs and things like that.
just in general, that kind of made you interested in music.
I think so. Yeah, it just seems fun. I mean, it's just songs in general. Because I think, I mean, what other music was I hearing? Like, I don't know, like, hymns at church or whatever. Besides like pop music,
Were you guys religious, or were you just like, we go to church on Sundays?
I think like I remember almost like everyone would go to church on Sundays, regardless of like what church you were going to, or Saturdays, whatever day your church met. But yeah, I mean, now it's kind of weird, but like then I think it was totally normal.
But I mean, like, did your family believe anything, or was it just like, oh, we're supposed to go to church?
No, I think, yeah, people bought into this stuff. I mean, I don't think we weren't like holy rollers or anything like that. I think my dad's side of the family didn't go to church, but my mom's side, like my grandmother and my mom, are believers.
Were you guys Catholics? For some reason, you strike me as coming from a Catholic background.
I have been to the Catholic Church many times, but no, it was, this could be a whole nother podcast, but it was Christian Science.
Okay, that's interesting. What are I kind of know the tenets of Christian Science because there's a lot of good things about it, right?
I think so.
Like it's pretty politically progressive, isn't it?
I don't know if it's politically progressive, but it's, it's like it's an American religion, and it was started by a woman in the 19th century. I think mostly it just kind of puts you in this like positive state of mind. Just like everything's cool, everything's perfect. And if you get sick, it's not, I don't know how to explain it. It's like not real. Maybe not real, but it's like if you're thinking properly and you're in tune with God, I guess, then you should have no problems. That's kind of a good, like, I don't know, mind space to be in, like as a kid, probably.
Yeah. So wait, does that mean you don't go to the doctor or anything like that?
Exactly.
Okay. So wait, what happens if you get seriously ill?
Right. Well, that's the question. What would you do? I remember like kids, if they found out, they would be like, have a long list of things they would ask you. What if you broke your arm? What if this happened? What if that happened? I don't know. None of that stuff ever happened. So, but I have been to the doctor many times. since I was like 20 or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Do you still subscribe to Christian Science?
I mean, I haven't been to. I guess I'll go with my mom, like if I'm visiting her, but I haven't like studied Christian Science or practiced it since I was like 18 or whatever.
I guess I meant. Is it meaningful to you still, or is religion meaningful?
Gosh, I mean, I'm probably more of a, what's the word?
I'm gonna guess agnostic.
Yeah, agnostic. Either agnostic or atheist at this point, but I do like that kind of positive mindset that Christian Science gave me. Maybe it doesn't give other people, I don't know, but it kind of gives me this positive, just growing up in it kind of gave me this positive mentality. Whereas I feel like there's a lot of people that will just talk for hours about like medical problems or potential medical problems they don't even have, and it just seems like a downward like mental state.
Oh yeah. Oh, so you're basically talking about 70% of my wife and I talking.
But I can feel myself getting into that too. Like oh shit, why is my like my thumb is hurting, like what's happening, or I can go in a spiral of negativity as well.
Yeah. I mean, there's a certain sense I can understand this, where there's a certain sense of like, well, I don't know about like talking or worrying about it. Either go to the doctor or don't, but
right.
The worrying part's not helping one way or the other, or the incessant talking about it. Like we're very COVID conscious. So, we put on masks when we go out and things like that. It's just like, okay, this is the reason why we are putting on masks, is because we know we could get it out somewhere. That's it. We don't have to talk about it incessantly.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. And I feel like even like I do be kind of neurotic, and I'm like, oh my God, like something's really wrong and I got to go to the doctor. And then I go to the doctor and it seems like most of the time they don't even know what's going on. They're just like, I don't know, could be this, could be that. Why don't you do that? Or they're like, you're completely fine.
Yeah.
Chill out.
Yeah. 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 So were your parents, did they also have a kind of positive mindset?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, my dad didn't grow up in Christian Science, but my mom did, and she's like super positive.
Yeah. I wonder, do you think that's what kind of attracted your dad to her? Because that seems like like someone with a very kind of positive mindset seems like an attractive kind of thing to me.
Yeah. I mean, probably not the Christian Science thing, I would assume wouldn't attract you to my mom, but yeah, definitely the positivity and cheerfulness and that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe she's just like that naturally. Maybe it has nothing to do with Christian Science.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe it was also a kind of confluence of someone who happened to be a positive person. And also now the context I'm in is one in which it is part of your faith to be positive.
Right. Yeah.
So, okay. So they meet, they have you. Do you have siblings?
I do have a sister. I have a variety of siblings if we want to go through the whole thing.
I'm assuming half. So my guess is, and you can tell me if I'm wrong about this, but they get divorced when you're about 8 or somewhere around there.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So I think we moved into, I was born in like Long Island because they were living in like, I think Manhattan, then like Queens and like Hempstead, and I just happened to be born in Long Island. And then my grandparents like sold the house that they had in New Jersey where my dad grew up and moved next door. And then we moved into that house, and then they had my sister, and then then we moved out and a new family moved in, and that was a new family. Well, the new my stepmom and her 2 sons. And then they had my half sister.
What did they do
for a lot of information?
No, this is good. What did they do for a living? Like where they were in Manhattan and everything?
My mom was, I think, always like a school teacher. And my dad worked at AT&T, which was like the only phone company in the United States. I think right out of college.
Okay.
So, and then he worked there for like 30 years or whatever.
As like a technician, as an executive, like what part of the company is he?
Right. Some sort of like manager of something or other. I need to find out more about that.
Yeah. So wait, AT&T gets broken up in like the early 80s, right? At the Bell or something like that. It doesn't get broken into like a different companies.
Ma Bell broke up, and then I think he worked for NYNEX, which is one of the how many ever companies was split into. Yeah.
Okay, so basically like kind of like middle class lifestyle.
Yeah.
It's interesting to think of like someone living in New York on a middle class lifestyle today.
Right. Well, I mean, yeah, it was like I guess Brooklyn and Queens, it was all middle class lifestyle back in the day, right?
Yeah, I mean,
40 years ago.
When I moved there, I lucked into an apartment that was affordable. I looked forever for something, and it was all just the worst kind of like a basement apartment with no windows for $2,000. And I remember having like anxiety, like nightmares, and like waking up sweating because I'm like, I have to move. I'm moving here. I can't afford any place.
Yeah, that sucks.
Yeah. But
I just had someone just told me, and they were kind of bragging. They were like, check this price out for my apartment. And it's like, I got this apartment in Brooklyn, blah, 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 blah. It's only $3,500 a month. And I'm like, wow. Like, if that's a bargain, then there's something wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay. So you could have a middle-class lifestyle, live in New York, then eventually end up in Jersey. And then when they got divorced, which parent did you go with? Like, who moved to
with
DC?
My mom. Yeah, my mom. I feel like when we moved to DC, it was almost like, I feel like over half the kids I knew in school, their parents were divorced and they lived with their mom. That just seems like what it was like. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, in my mind, everything from the 70s is the ice storm in some way. And so
I was just thinking about that movie. I haven't seen it. I don't think I've seen it since it came out, but for some reason it like comes up in my head a lot. I'm not saying like, did your parents have key parties and stuff like that, but just that kind of like level of the parents in the 70s become dissatisfied with their lives in some way. Mm-hmm. And they're also, the children have almost no supervision really. And just that kind of, that in my mind, that film seems to typify what the spirit was. Either that or I think Squid and the Whale. Is that the 80s? Anyway, but like... I don't know if I've seen that one, but yeah.
Oh, it's great. But like those two films in some way, this kind of like the spirit of the 70s into the 80s of parental, of like parents kind of not knowing what's going on as the world changes, as like as neoliberalism takes over, as Reagan takes over then, and it's just kind of all kind of like, what the fuck is happening at the same time, and everyone becomes kind of alienated from each other. So that's what is in my mind. I don't know if that's what you experienced.
Definitely experienced like absolutely no parental supervision. Like I remember even being in New Jersey at that house in Chatham, and couldn't have been more than like 4 or 5 years old. So after dinner, you'd have to be like excused from dinner. You always had to be at dinner. Like there was a lot of rules about dinner. You got to eat all the food. You can't leave stuff on your plate. God, it was super annoying. And then after dinner, you could get excused even though you're only 5 years old, and like just go outside and it's dark outside, and hang out with the neighborhood kids and play hide and seek in the dark. And nobody really seemed to care. It was great. And then that continued when you had only one parent, it was like even easier to do that. And the parents didn't really care either. So it was kind of great.
Yeah.
And I think there was some sort of, amongst the parents, there was kind of some sort of, there's got to be more to life than just going to work and blah, blah, blah. So I think my mom was kind of a partier, although she was Christian Science, so she didn't drink, but she was like, loved to like socialize. And she was always going on like ski trips that we weren't going on and things like that. So even more opportunity to explore the world without your parents.
Do you feel like you could...
Now it seems like kids have such a different relationship with their parents. Like they're kind of like friends with their parents.
Yeah, I don't get that.
That didn't really happen back then.
No. That was going to be my next question was, do you think you could talk to your parents?
Do I think I could talk to them?
Yeah, that.
I mean, I talk to them all the time. Oh.
But if you had like a problem, or if you had something that you were dealing with either like existentially or emotionally or something like that, could you go to them with that? Or
Certainly never did.
did it seem like there was a barrier? Because that's what it was for me. I felt like there's a barrier. And maybe now, even I in my mid 40s, I am slowly breaking down that barrier, but very slowly. And we'll see if I can actually dismantle it. But
yeah, I feel like the barrier is lessened. Maybe that's just because we're all older. But yeah, I never talked to my parents back then about much.
is there someone you could talk to? Like, this is the thing I'm thinking of now. I'm like, I didn't even really talk to my friends about problems. I kind of just kept it bottled up. Like, did you bottle it up, or was there anyone you could talk to?
I mean, I can't imagine talking to my friends when I was like 11 or whatever.
Right.
Because it was all like, we would just talk about like football and like music or whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, no.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, it was video games, comic books, basketball. Like, those were the things you talked about. You didn't, if you had a problem, you just pushed it down, and that was that.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
That's crazy. Sorry. I'm really thinking about it. And I'm just like, who did, like, literally, unless the problem was so manifest. Like, I remember just like having problems, this is in high school, having problems with some of the kids at school, and my friend stepping in, because like one of the people went to like try to bully me, and my friend was like, fuck this, and he went and punched the guy that was trying to bully me, and that was
nice.
that was like the end of whatever that was. And we didn't actually talk about our problems. It was just like, if something bubbled up to the surface and you couldn't ignore it, then someone dealt with it, and that was that.
Nice.
I guess.
I mean, at least this problem was solved, right?
Yeah, true. Did not, I wasn't bullied very often, and that one time I was dealt with pretty swiftly. So I guess we could say at least it came to a conclusion, as opposed to a healthy conclusion.
Right.
Yeah. So, okay. Well, this is the thing that I talk about a lot on the show, especially with musicians, is if you're bottling things up, which a lot of people from your and my generation, we're not separated by that much, but just enough that we get to be in two different generations. How do you learn to express yourself if most of your life is spent bottling things up?
Right. Song lyrics, I guess, right? Is that the answer?
Oh, is that the answer? I don't know. Most people are like, I don't know. Like mine is therapy. So that's my answer.
Yeah. I think song lyrics, sure. Yeah. I think that's how you do it. At least that's how I did it. I've never been to therapy. I should probably do that.
If you feel the need to. I think it's good for everyone, but I don't proselytize. But in writing song lyrics, how do you allow yourself to express yourself? Or does it just come out naturally and you don't actually think about it? Do you know what I mean? Like, when I wrote lyrics back in the day, I was too scared to be vulnerable in them. So they were very abstract. It was like if you took Steve Malkmus up about 10 notches. And I'm like, no one's going to find out what I'm feeling from this.
Yeah, right. I mean, I have a lot of abstract lyrics, but I feel like you can still kind of speak through those abstract lyrics. And even maybe, I don't know, even have more of an emotional release with abstract lyrics than you could with some specific thing. Maybe not.
Maybe. I will say this. In terms of like you personally getting stuff out, I think yes. I think about connecting with other people. I don't know if anyone could read my... I can see your lyrics. I can connect with them. I don't think if you saw what I had written at the time, you would be able to discern any kind of actual emotion from them.
I see. But I don't think when I was writing my lyrics, I wasn't really thinking about, is anyone going to figure out what this is about? I didn't really care. I was kind of just like, these are the lyrics. take them or leave them.
What was the point of writing for you then? When you first started writing music, like why did you want to?
Why did I want to write music in general? I mean, I just loved music, and I was such a huge fan of music, and then just having a guitar was like so exciting. And then after that, finding other people that would play with you was another level of excitement. And then at some point you're like, I think we started out, it was just instrumentals and there was no singing. And then at some point we're like, maybe one of us should sing. And then you needed lyrics. You didn't really need them. We could have done like just scatting or whatever, like jazz scatting. That would have been cooler. That would have been much cooler. I'd probably be like some much more famous musician for inventing the scat rock and roll scene.
Indie crooner.
But I think as I grew, I started doing stuff in the band at like 15 or 16 or something. And I think as I got older, then my lyrics got better and maybe got better. And also maybe were more of a conduit for some sort of emotional release. I think probably the original ones are probably just kind of copying, like what do other people write in their songs? I should write something like that.
What year do you guys move to DC?
1975.
Oh, 75. So by the time, okay, interesting. By the time like DC punk really hits, you're a teenager. You're like at the right time in the right place for Minor Threat and all of that stuff.
Yeah. I mean, yes and no. Like I didn't know. Like I had like Rolling Stone magazine, and I went to the record store, which was like in a department store. So kind of like if you imagine like a Sears with like a record store section.
Yeah, that was Boss Guys
my record store. Okay, nice. And so I didn't really know that there was I didn't know that local music existed. I mean, I knew that like Kiss and Queen played at the arena, but I didn't know there was other like music that was like local and that they were putting out records. So I think at some point in high school, I met someone, and actually it was like a friend of mine, because I was kind of like, I had discovered like the Sex Pistols and like Adam and the Ants and the Undertones and things like that. And a friend of mine who actually knew from years earlier, now that I'm thinking about it, I think we were on the baseball team together, and she's like, do you know Minor Threat? And I was like, I don't know that band. I was like, how does this person who doesn't know all the cool music like I do know about Minor Threat? And I think it turned out that her mom was like friends with one of the moms of the people, one of the persons in Minor Threat. So anyway, and then after I learned about Minor Threat, then I was like, holy shit. So I was kind of like a little bit late to it because I didn't know it existed. So I was like 1982.
Okay.
And I discovered it in like 1978 or 79. It would have been like super cool person.
Was the move to DC disruptive? I imagine like a divorce on top of a move to a completely different state might be, but also you said you had such a positive mindset that maybe it wasn't for you.
I mean, it definitely sucked originally because Chatham, like New Jersey, is very like town based. So like there's no like, because grew up when I was in DC, I was in Virginia. So it's very new like communities, because I think it was like very rural. And so there weren't these like old towns that were like 200 years old. And, so when I was in New Jersey, I knew like all the neighborhood kids. And then I just moved, it was just hard getting like meeting all the new kids, and even in New Jersey, we moved to a different town before we moved to DC. So it was a lot of school. Like I went to like 6 or 7 schools, like from elementary to high school. So I think there is that, like in in Virginia, there isn't these little towns. I mean, we had like our neighborhood, but it's all county based. So you're in a county is like your town, and it's a much bigger space. Whereas in New Jersey, you're like in this small town, everybody knows each other, and there's only like 8,000 people there. Mm-hmm. So I think Arlington County is like, at least at the time, was probably like 175,000 people.
What brought your mom down there? Did she find a job? Did she specifically want to move far away? Like, what was going on?
Her sister already lived there, so that was. I think she was like, I need a change, and my sister says I should move down here, and it's cool, and she still loves it down there.
Do you think that was the point of contention between your parents, that your mom felt this kind of like, just the little bit that you've said, in my mind, it's your mom was like a seeker and your dad's was more kind of like, hey, we got this. I'm happy with what's going on right now.
I mean, I don't think that has anything to do with why they got divorced. I think that had more to do with other things, but I think that's definitely true. My dad still lives within like miles of where he grew up, so it's kind of interesting.
Do you think you follow after either of them, or are you some kind of combination? Like, where do you think you fall between that?
I think I'm a combo, I guess. Yeah. I don't mind. I do feel like I'm not like grounded in terms of like, I'd say I'm from DC, but I do also feel like I'm from New Jersey, and then I'm also like not from either one in a weird way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I can imagine that, 8, you're starting to really like form who you are as a person, like really like kind of start to go on the journey of like, who are you around like, 8, 9, 10. Around there before you hit your tweens. So I imagine that might moving to a completely different, between a divorce and moving to a completely different state, it might throw a sense of dislocation into your personality in some way.
Yeah, I think so. I think it did. I don't know what else to say about that, but yeah, I think you're right.
Because I'm just trying to get a picture.
Is this like therapy? Is this what therapy is like?
Hold on, I'm gonna put the dog down.
But you have a dog. You have a dog and a cat.
Yeah, and the dog wanted to sit on the chair next to me, and then decided, nope, I'm done with this. Is this what therapy is like? It can be. My therapist is very much like a brick wall. Like she's very Freudian, and she's very much like, I'll say something and I'll be like, so what do you think? She's like, well, what do you think about it? And then I have to answer it. And I'm just like, I can't, I know that's Freudian. I know that's what they're supposed to do. But also part of me is just like, just tell me what you think. I don't want to.
Right.
I know what I think already.
Right. Let's have a little back and forth.
Yeah. She's very much not going to reveal anything about herself, and that kind of, I'm like, part of me likes it, and also I'm just like annoyed.
How long have you been seeing that particular therapist?
5-6 years now.
Okay.
I think we're getting to something good at this point, and that's why I'm like, well, I guess we'll keep going.
Okay. Getting towards the breakthrough. See, I've never been to a therapist, but I've seen, of course, many TV shows and movies about these things.
Yeah. I think the thing with me now is I'm just like, as things in the world get worse, I'm more talking to her about like, I don't know how to deal with this. I don't know how to live in the world as it kind of, descends into some kind of dystopia. And that's my problem. The problem is not generated inside. Like, there are like internal problems or like, familial problems that we can talk about.
Sure.
But the main ones are like, I don't know what the fuck is going on, and I don't know how to deal with it.
Okay. Huh. You could like not watch TV, not listen to the radio, and not read newspapers. Just an idea.
Yes. But then what do I do? I got to do something.
True.
So you end up in DC. How do you find your footing? Like, you're playing baseball, just doing school stuff. Like, where do you start to find any sense of community?
I think like high school, because that was the first time. Because I think I'd been to like 4 different elementary schools between New Jersey and Virginia. I think once we got to Virginia, it was like, oh, cool. We have this school which is like 2 blocks away from us, and then it closed, and then we had to go to this other school. But anyway, so then middle school was like 2 years, but then high school is like a full 4 years, and I stayed at the same high school. So I think high school is where I met, the people I started playing music with. I don't even know how it happened. I think it was like on the school bus, like somebody's like, I don't know if I was advertising it, like, hey, I just got an electric guitar. And then somebody kind of found out and was like, I have an electric guitar too. We should play together. But then, just meeting people through music at high school, and they're just kind of your friends. And, that's where my band was formed in high school. That's where I formed the record label. So that was pretty much it. Yeah. Was high school.
Is it just a natural thing? You're like, I want to play music, so I'm going to start forming a band. Was there any kind of conscious thought? Because I had a guitar, but I was up until college, I was not, I don't know. I was like pretty scared. I played a couple times live. Like I remember
solo?
No, with other people. Okay. Like,
yeah,
my temple had a talent show at a nursing home where there were a lot of Jewish residents, and I played 2 States with some friends, the Pavement song.
Oh, cool.
And that may have been like one of the few times where I was not embarrassed to be up in front of people.
Okay.
So I'm kind of curious about how where it came from. This is always the question I ask on the show. Where does it come from? You could have had a guitar, played in your bedroom, never wanted to write your own music, never wanted to play in front of people at all. What was it about you?
I don't know what it was about me. But I was just kind of obsessed with music, and you would see Elton John on TV or whatever with his crazy outfits, and he's just like such a great performer. Or my grandfather did home movies, like actual film movies. They're actually all silent, but there's like videos of me like singing with his like fireplace poker, which kind of looked like a microphone. I was just kind of very focused and obsessed with like making music. So I think even before I found anybody to play with in high school, I was already like writing songs and trying to record things on like little cassette decks and things like that. I don't know why.
Was it something as simple? I mean, it could just be like, oh, it seems like Elton John's having fun. I would love to have fun like that. It could just be something like that.
I don't know if it was, I want to have fun. I want to make music and have fun, I guess. Yeah. It was definitely music focused for sure. It wasn't just like, that looks like fun. I'll somehow learn the guitar because I want to have fun. Yeah, I remember our next door neighbor, before I got my own guitar, he had an electric guitar, and I was like, holy shit. Because back then you would see like an acoustic guitar, you'd see them everywhere. You're like, sure. I don't know, a lot of people had acoustic guitars and they were kind of cool, but they weren't as cool as seeing an electric guitar. But you never saw it, like, because I wasn't going to like concerts or anything. But a next door neighbor had one, and he was kind of like younger than my mom, like this couple. And he would let me like strum the guitar, and I was like, holy shit, this is amazing. And I remember being like so like heavy, and it was like I would have to place it on my lap. It was just, I don't know why. I'm just still, it's still cool.
Yeah. There is something, now that you say that, about the heft of it that feels good.
Yeah.
Like I could use this as a weapon. I can feel that in the guitar.
And I think for some reason the guitar I bought, I think the only reason I got this particular guitar is that it was on sale for like $99 at the music store in the mall. But it just happens to be like one of the heaviest guitars.
What guitar was it?
It's an Epiphone Genesis.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So, yeah, it's just heavy. I don't know.
Yeah. So, okay. So there's something about this that interests you. What is the pathway to you then actually writing your own songs?
I don't know.
Because again, you could have just stopped at like, I like playing, Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, whatever that's. I could have just played covers of that or something, or set.
Well, it's funny. I don't think I knew how to play any songs. I had taken like violin classes in like third grade, and then I got the guitar. Had absolutely no lessons on the guitar, and so I'm just like fucking around on it. I'm just like, switching the tuning and like to whatever sounds good. And then I actually tell people that I invented the bar chord because I did, but I didn't know that someone else had invented it long before I even picked up the guitar. But I just kind of tried to find things that sounded cool on the guitar. And I don't know. I think I was writing songs like right after I got the guitar. Like I have like really early recordings of me just messing around, like 1982 or whenever I bought that guitar.
Okay. And that's about the time that you also get into the DC music scene a little bit. Your friend teaches you about Minor Threat. Is there any desire to play hardcore music at all?
Definitely. I mean, I was a huge fan of it. I think I got into like it was my second rock show ever. The first one was Squeeze, I think, in New Jersey with my stepbrother. But the second show I was a huge PIL fan, and Minor Threat was opening up for PIL. So that was my first like hardcore thing. So yeah, I loved like all the Discord music, Marginal Man, Government Issue, Minor Threat. And I went to like, I don't know how many shows I went to a month, but 4 or 5 or more. So I did like hardcore, but I also loved everything else. I was still listening to Elton John. I mean, I bought like whatever the album he had coming out in 1982. I have it. So I'm still listening to. I remember listening to Elvis Costello. In fact, I remember buying the Elvis Costello record because I had a Linda Ronstadt record where she did all these Elvis Costello songs, and then there was a new Elvis Costello album, and I got that because I was like, well, now I can hear what songs Linda Ronstadt's going to do next. So I don't even know where I was going with this, but
you have a well-rounded diet. That's great.
Yeah. So I wanted to do everything. So when I met like these guys in high school, Phil, who was the drummer, I think I had already been playing with these other 2 guys who were kind of more into like Rush and Van Halen. And then we needed a drummer, and I was like, I think this guy is in the marching band. So I was like, do you play drums? And he's like, yeah. He's like, do you have like a set of drums, or do you just play the snare like you do in the marching band? And he's like, no, I have like a rock drum set. So I started playing with him, and then this other guy, Tim, and that's what became Unrest. And those guys were into everything too. So it wasn't just hardcore. We were also into like Phil was into like, he introduced me to like King Crimson. And then we were also into like whatever new wave stuff was coming out. So it was like, we just wanted to play everything.
Yeah.
And that was kind of like the rule of the band, was like, we're just going to play every genre we can possibly think of.
Was there any ambition to professionalize this? Or was it just, hey, this is fun, but I'm going to go and become a marine biologist or whatever? Like, was there like, was this the thing, or was it just on the side?
I mean, we were mostly done high school, but yeah, I think when college came around, everybody went off to college. And I went to college, but I went in DC because I didn't want to leave the music scene. So I probably would have wanted to make it like a full-time thing. I don't know if that would have been possible, but I think also, even though we are going to all these local music shows, hardcore shows, and the other things that were going on in DC, I don't think we didn't know how to get a show. So we're playing at like, kind of like you were doing, we were playing at the talent show at high school. Like that's our gig. Cause we didn't know how to get the show. Even though we're going to these other shows, we're like, well, that must just be for a certain group of people that know what they're doing. Like, I don't know how to get booked on that show.
Okay.
So I think once we put a record out, I think we recorded the summer after we graduated. And then once that record came out, then actually people had never heard of us because we're playing out at our high school and like maybe some parties at high school. And then it was kind of like, oh, as soon as you had a record out, because there weren't that many records out back in those days. So if you had a record, like somebody was listening to it, like somebody had listened to it. They might not like it, but somebody had heard it. And I think at that point, then people were like, oh, you should play at the 930 Club. I know someone who books the 930 Club. Maybe you know, she'll book you at a 3 bands, $3 show or something. Like that.
Okay, so mid 80s, you put out an album, and that's really the thing that kind of congeals it into a possibility.
Yeah.
Right? Because that then means that you can go play shows, and people start introducing you into the actual world of doing this for real.
Right. And then you're like, oh, this is how it works. Okay. Like, this is, you know, and then once, you know, someone books you at a place, they usually, a lot of times will call you back and say, hey, do you want to play in next month? Or, you know.
Yeah.
So it was, I think for a few years, like between, I don't know, freshman or sophomore year of high school, whenever I started playing with the other dudes. And then like until we graduated, the whole thing was like a complete mystery. But we were still playing music, recording at our parents' house and things like that.
Was there a point where you're like, oh, this is what I want to do with my life for real?
It never, I guess, I mean, that's a good question. I mean, I think I always wanted to do that, but it didn't seem like economically feasible. Although it was economically feasible later on, because speaking of real estate prices, you could rent a house in Arlington, Virginia for $900 a month, and you could have like 5 of your friends live there too, and so your rent was like $200 a month. Like, I remember, you know, so I remember my rent was always like $200. It was always the number 2 in the beginning, and the first number, it was like $200, you know, from when I was like 20 to 28 or something like that.
Oh, I lived in Pittsburgh for a while, and I remember. So this is Pittsburgh is amazing, and early 2000s, I had half of a house with someone for like $320 something.
Wow.
It was, and I've never ever every subsequent move to a different city has been a smaller place and more money.
Right.
But that, like, and I think that's what allows like the Pittsburgh music scene, at least at the time, I don't know about now, but at the time,
yeah,
the Pittsburgh music scene was flourishing. And I have to imagine that it was in part because of that it was actually affordable to live there.
Of course. Yeah, definitely.
In the same way that it was for you.
Right. I mean, if you look at, I mean, I don't know what that had to do. I guess a lot of the DC hardcore scene was people living at their parents' house, because most people are in high school. But it was cheap to, you know, with 1980s rent prices were low. So it was definitely a fertile place.
Yeah.
And it probably isn't now, because maybe it's not. I mean, maybe it still is, but maybe it's not because the rents are so high. I don't know.
Yeah. Was there a specific thing you ever wanted to do? Or was it that, you know, there were these little steps that kept pushing you in the direction of playing music? Or were you ever like, oh, I want to be blank. Either I want to be I have an actual ambition to be some other kind of profession, or I have an ambition to be X kind of musician, whatever that is. Elton John, I'll just say.
I never thought, I don't know, for whatever reason, I never thought I could be anything.
Interesting.
Like like Elton John seemed like way too successful to actually be, but I remember also just thinking, like, because I loved designing things. I'm also a graphic designer, and like that's what I am now. But I think even when I was like 20, even in college, it didn't seem like something I could do. I remember wanting to be an architect, and I was like, well, that must be it's the same kind of thing, like trying to figure out how to play a show. It's like, how do you become an architect? Even though I'm at college, I could have asked someone. I don't think I ever went to like a guidance counselor or anything like that.
Yeah.
I could have just gone to the guidance counselor and like, oh, you just have to take these classes and then you can be an architect.
Yes. No, I was the same way. And I wonder for you, well, I'll ask you, do you know where that comes from? Where you're like, there's a thing I'm interested in, but I don't know how to get there. And I don't know why. Like I at the time, there was no question to me, like, well, how do I do it? It was just like, it was almost preclude. Yeah. Is that the word?
Yeah.
Precluded. Like, it's not going to happen. It's not for me.
Right. I mean, I don't know that word, but I know what you're saying. Yeah, it's just like, that seems unattainable and I don't know how to do it. That's why I think the whole band thing and the record label is like, well, I don't, Elton John is on MCA Records. I don't know where MCA is or how you would get signed up to MCA. So we're just going to do it ourselves. And I feel like if I'm doing things myself, I can totally control what's happening and I can make it happen. More importantly, I can just make it happen. Like, we could record some songs today. I can dub them on cassette and then we can bring it to high school tomorrow and we can sell these cassettes or just hand them out to people. Yeah. So I feel like that's kind of obtainable because I'm controlling the whole thing.
Yeah, that's really interesting though. That because you seem like if I hadn't talked to you, I just assumed that you were an ambitious person. You make music, you release music, you have a successful record label that was very influential for me, right? And all that kind of stuff. I would assume that you're like, yes, well, I had this plan, I wanted to do this, this, and this, and right. But it seems more like you're like, well, I just enjoy this, and I want it to happen, so I guess I just have to do it myself because I don't know how else to do it.
That's pretty much it. Yeah, I don't know how else to do it, and it's total DIY for sure.
Do you enjoy the aesthetic of that? Is there any kind of like? Was there any kind of thought about like, well, if we did this on a bigger level? There'd be a lot of bullshit to put up with that I just don't want to put up with.
I don't think I knew about the extra bullshit until Unrest was kind of involved with the extra bullshit. And I was like, oh, this is extra bullshit. Because when Unrest, I guess we put out our fourth album, Imperial, and all of a sudden people are calling us up like A&R people, like people from Atlantic Records want to take us out to eat or whatever, Slash Records or, and then we did sign with like a bigger label. And then all of a sudden we thought we signed with a smaller label, but then all of a sudden, oh wait, you're on Warner Brothers in the United States. Oh, so now we have to play like a weird distribution warehouse conference room in New Jersey. So we did a lot of weird stuff like that. But that was pretty short-lived, but yeah. But then, and in retrospect, you're like, oh, we should have just kept putting our own records out.
It's interesting. So my wife and I have a podcast, and at first we signed with this small network, and then after a couple months, that network got sold to iHeartRadio. Oh, so shit. We went from being like, okay, this is nice where we are, and then suddenly iHeart used to be Clear Channel. It's just they just changed the name. Yeah, they just changed the name, so it's the same.
Wow.
All the criticisms people have about Clear Channel are the same ones you could have about iHeart, and suddenly it just got to be like, oh wait, this is not what we want to deal with.
Right, yeah, it's crazy.
So I kind of understand what that is.
Yeah.
Right.
Is your podcast still on the air?
Yeah. Well, we left that like as soon as the contract ended, we're like, we left and went to do something else and went to a network that we really do like.
Nice.
So, but like, I get that kind of like, no. This is way too much bullshit for what we want to do.
Yeah. Right. Like we were just like, even though we were being distributed by Warner Brothers, it was like, we were still playing, we'd still play at parties in DC, or we'd still like, there's this great video of us playing in the front of this record store in Memphis. It's like just on the driveway. It's kind of cool, which I feel like that wouldn't have happened had we had like some manager or something, or, I don't know.
Yeah. They're like, hey, we need you to open up for Mariah Carey next week. I don't know if her audience is going to like us.
Interesting.
Right. Mark, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. This
is kind of cool podcast. I like it.
Thank you. I've had Trevor was on. I don't know if I said that before. Yeah.
Oh wait, is this from like a couple years ago?
Yeah,
I love that one. I didn't even know this was the same. That's a great podcast. I didn't know that was you.
Yeah.
That was a great one. I mean, I think I even used it in like when he had a new record come out. I was like, had a link to this podcast in there. I was like, check it out.
That's awesome.
You're going to learn a lot about Trevor. Yeah.
That's awesome. And I'm so
cool.
glad you could join me.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me.
And we'll see you next time. Bye. Bye, oh, 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 bye. Bye.